Yes. So we are now going to be looking at three things. We are going to be looking at CSS box model. We are also going to look at CSS outline and as well CSS position and displays. So we are going to look at those three key things. And let me hope time will allow us. I don't want us to exceed 1 hour. So please, everyone, be attentive. And if you're on your computer already, you can be coding along with us. And I hope this session will be interactive. So please ask questions in case of any questions. Do not just sit there. Please make sure you ask and understand. So now, as always, let us start by creating or by going to our workspace. So, and then once we are in our workspace, I'll go ahead and create a new folder, and I'll just call it CSS finalization. So then I'll just go into it, and then I'll open it using code space dot in my VS Code as we've been seeing this. Then I'll just go ahead and arrange this. All right, so now as we normally start, so we always start with creating some files. I'll start with an index.html, and then I'll go ahead and do an index.css for our CSS. And then I also do a folder called public for images. So you see this in most of, in many cases, you'll see that most of the assets like images, videos, audios will mostly be put in a folder called public. So this is a naming convention, or this is a structure convention where most of the assets or most of the static files like images, like audios and videos, as I said, usually go into the public folder. So you mostly see this structure. Let me go ahead and zoom in. So now I'll just go ahead and go into my HTML. So I'll just pose this question to you guys. So if I want to get a boilerplate of HTML, what should I do? Mic check. I just need some basic HTML codes. What snippet or what shortcut or what shorthand should I go with?
Exclamation mark.
Mic check.
Exclamation mark.
I can't hear you. Can you please speak up? If somebody's speaking, I can't hear them.
I think exclamation.
Yes, it's an exclamation mark. So now I'll just go ahead and do an exclamation or just write in HTML like this, then choose HTML5. It's the same thing. So we have all been used to this. So whereby we have the doc type, which is the type of the HTML we're working with. Right now it's HTML5. And this HTML is the root element that takes in the language. And by default, it takes in a language of English. If you even remove it, it will go ahead with it. It will have a default of English. So, and the head is another part and the body. So the head usually contains some metadata and as well as the title. So the title, this is what it is seen on the tab of a certain page in a browser. And the metadata, please guys read more about metadata. So metadata usually this is where we store additional information to our page so that browsers can recognize different things. An example, usually we do the viewport. This one keeps our web page responsive. And this is not enough. That is why we most of the times add in more responsiveness codes. And also the character set, and as well as some other links to CSS and other links to our fonts, and as well as also some other SEO related links, whereby you can at least have in more description to your page and so on. So please guys read. It's something that won't take you 5 minutes if you're to read about metadata. So this is something that won't take you more minutes. So you can just go ahead and search on Google meta in HTML, and they will give you, you can even obviously see it on the W3 schools, which is the resource I mostly use. So you can see what is there mostly. So you can have a meta of giving you a description of your web page. So this actually helps in SEOs. Last time I told you SEOs are search engine optimization. So if I go to Google, or if I go to a browser and just type in maybe RBC, so what gives this thing to come up here, priority to other things, are what we call search engine optimizations. And also there are some websites which you will search and you won't see anything. So which means they are not well optimized. So this and more other things that we put in the head are the ones that contribute to the effectiveness of our search engine optimizations. So we also put in a meta of some keywords on our web page, and we as well put in the meta for the author, and we as well put in the meta for the responsiveness. This is the basic responsiveness of a web page. So this doesn't give you the freedom to not write more responsiveness styles. You need to write more responsiveness styles. So please read this in details. We are not going to take so much time on this. I'll just go ahead and share this in our chat. There are some things that you should read that should be self-explanatory. So you can see they give you every attribute, what it does and what you can put in there. So they will explain. This is just one page that you can read in only 5 minutes. So please take some time and read through. So I'll just go ahead. I'll remove this for now. And then, but if we are to use like this one, maybe this metadata, so you can see what it does. So finalize, let me say description. This has to be description. And then here I'll put in more description, maybe like finalizing CSS basics. So now I'll just go ahead and go live with this. And nothing is inside, but if we come to the inspect, you will see that within your head, let me not even use the inspect, let me use view the page source. You will see the description is always there, and some other content that is added. So this is some JavaScript that is added by default. So you don't need to get worried about it, because this is some JavaScript that is added so that your web page can be visible in a browser and so on. So now, there are some things that should be added to your browser, even though you did not use them or even though you did not write them, and that is up to how the browsers handle HTML, and that one we don't need to know. But I wanted to show you that your description or your metadata are always shown within the source or codes of your HTML within the browser, which means the browser is capable of tracking this and analyzing it and being able to use it for better optimizations for your searches, be on Google search or even other search engines like Bing and so on. So please read more about it. For the title, you already know what it does. And for the body, this is where our content goes. So now, as I said, we are going to be looking at some CSS box model. So in CSS, the term box model is very crucial and is used when we are talking about the design and layout. Last time we learned about grid and flex layout. I hope you guys will still remember all of this. And I hope it is helping you in whatever you're working on related to your portfolios. So now the CSS box model works hand in hand with those layouts that we saw. And this explains clearly how those layouts are able to actually be positioned. So CSS export model is very essential, and this is something that consists of the normal CSS properties that we've seen, the content, the padding, the borders, and margins. And for us to be able to understand this fully, let us just write some codes. As I said, guys, please make sure you follow along and hold along if you're already on your computers. So let us just write some div and with some CSS, and we see how the box model works. So I'll just go ahead and put in here a div. And maybe this div can contain some content or not. Let me just leave it without some content. And then I'll just go ahead and link my CSS. So for the links, there are also so many types. There is a link for CSS. There is a link for the favor icon. I hope you guys know what a favor icon is. A favor icon is this thing that appears here. Can you see my cursor? Right now, we have a global favor icon, which is something that looks like how do we call this? A globe. So this is the default one, but if you have it there, it should appear like you see Google has its favor icon. And if you go on any other website, you will see some other favor icons. So now let us try and see how we can put a favor icon of our own. So I'll just go ahead and look for for an image, and let me see if I'll get a good image. Let me just use any favor icon from anywhere, right? I think I should be able to see a favor icon here. So favor icons are usually images like any other images, but you should use a smaller image so that it appears better. So let me look. Yes, let me just take this one. Yes. So this is an image. As you can see, it's a PNG image. So if I want to use it, I'll just make sure that let me first delete this. I'll just make sure that I use the normal link for favor icon, not CSS this time. And then here, this is what I'm going to change. I'll just say favor icon .png. And here now, you have a full explanation of why we prefer using public instead of using any other folder. So we mostly use public because public can be accessed anywhere from your codes without specifying the full path. Can you see that this one will be now already detected that it is in public? We didn't need to specify something like public. It should be like this normally, right? So, but we didn't need to specify this. Instead, we just did like this. So if you have your images in public, you don't need to specify the full path. But again, we don't need to put all our images in public. We only need to put images in public that can be accessed very quickly and that we want to be loaded before any other thing. So we can't put in all the images because again, we need to have lazy loading in our web pages, or we need to make sure that images are only loaded once they are needed. So now, I've now put there my favor icon. I should be able to see it in my browser. If I come and refresh, I should be able to see it here, but I'm not seeing it. Let me make sure. Yes. Let's see if we, let me just grab the actual path and we see. Right now it is being seen, but again, this one should also work. Let me just stop the server and run it again. Because this one should also work without pulling the the absolute path or the full path. It should work. So let's see. I'll try to remove it and see. Did I do any mistake here? This is how it is normally spelled. Oh, I've realized the issue. I've realized the problem. So if you want your images that are in the public folder to be got or to be relatively detected without specifying the full path, then also your files where you're using them, they also need to be in the public folder. Otherwise, you will need to use other ways to make sure that you capture the public URL, which would be the same as writing the full path like this. So you either need to make sure that also your files are in the public, or maybe make sure also that your index.html is in public. But if you're using other frameworks like React, you don't need to specify it. You don't need to specify it for them. The engines are made in such a way that they will be able to detect the public folder. Let me show you something. Like here in this project, I didn't actually need to specify. You can see my index.html is in the source. Where is it? Let me see. Let me actually open this. I think I already have one which is already opened. Let me bring it here. So if we are to look at this structure, you can see my favor icon is here, but I'm able to access it even though my index.html is here. And you can see I was only able to access it like this. Or could it be because of the slash? Let's see if we put there a slash, if we'll be able to get it. No, it's different. So for frameworks like React, you can actually be able to grab your favor icon without specifying public and so on. So for them, their engines are made in such a way that you can grab your favor icon from wherever it is, as long as it is in the public folder. All right, so, but again, if you also go in your HTML and put your index.html in public, you also be able to access it without specifying the absolute path. So now let's continue. So you've seen how you can use your favor icon by using the link and specifying the relationship to be shortcut icon. And for the CSS, we only need to do this, and we specify our file for CSS. So does everyone understand this before we move on with our box model? Do we all understand this? I can see. Okay. Yes, please remember, if you do not understand things, please raise a question or ask. So now, as I was saying, I'm going to demonstrate to you how the box model works, and you're going to be learning padding, margin, and as well borders and outlines. So now for the background, we already did. So now let me start with, we only have one div. Let me just take it here, and then I'll collapse this, and then I'll make this smaller. I hope you can still see this. And then I want to use my tag. I don't want to use a class or an ID as the CSS selector. I want to use my tag, which is div. So if I'm using my tag, I need to just write div, and then I can just have their curly braces, and then I can have in some styles like a background color. Let me go with the background color of maybe red, to be very well visible. If I come here, I won't be able to see the red, because even though I have my div here, I did not give it a height and I did not give it a width. I hope that one is well understood, right? So if I try to give it maybe a height and a width. Let's say I give it a height of 200 pixel and I give it a width of maybe 300 pixel. So right now I'll be able now to see my box. So I don't need to refresh because I'm using live server. So I'm repeating this so that you guys, if you didn't follow in the sessions that we started, since today we are actually wrapping up with HTML and CSS. So that is why I'm kind of repeating some things, right? So that you can even get to recall those things since they were covered in the first sessions. So I don't need to reload this page because I'm using live server to run my HTML code. So now you can see if you give your div a width and a height, you'll be able to see what is inside. Otherwise, you need to provide some content. Otherwise, I mean, if you do not want to give it a height and a width, then you need to provide it with some content. And there are so many cases whereby you'll be writing some divs and you just want to maybe style it as a bullet and you don't want to give it maybe some content, right? Like, let me show you an example. You can maybe want to use some custom bullets, right? And then you will need to maybe say a border radius, you give it a border radius of maybe 50%. So 50%, it means it will be fully round. So you can see you can obtain a small bullet. I made it bigger so that you can see it. But for bullets, they will usually be very small, right? So this is how you can now style it. So you can see we just wanted a bullet without any content inside. Therefore, we'll need to use a div. So, but that's not our topic for today. Let me just remove this and we remain with our width. Let us remain with a width of only 300 pixels. Of course, if we only have a width, we won't be able to see also our background because there is no height. But this is what I want you guys to understand. So we are going to look at a box model. We are going to see that everything we write in HTML is displayed as a box. So now, if I come and now put there a border, let me say a border, we are going to use a border shorthand whereby we need to provide all the three values. So you remember last time when we were learning about borders, so you can have separate border properties like maybe border color, border width, border style. Like we can say border style, we are going to have maybe a border style which is solid, and we can say a border width, and we can give it maybe 2 pixels, and we can say now a border, we can say a border color of maybe blue, like this. So right now we don't have a height. That is why it is displaying as a line. Let me just put the height for just displaying, right? So you can see this border which is blue around here. So you can do borders by doing this, but this is so tiresome and it's very long. So you can rather have a border shorthand which is like this, and now you can specify all the three properties. You can specify the width, you can specify the style, and you can specify the color. Let me just give it a color of blue as I had given it before, and then maybe do 10 pixels. So you can see it will still be the same thing, right? You can see this is just one line. The other ones were 3 lines. So therefore, this is the one that is more efficient than the other. So now, let us now again remove the height, and now this is how it will be displayed. So we are going to put in a padding. So if you remember, what is the difference between padding and margin? I need somebody to tell us about this. What is the difference between a margin and a padding? I saw Teofile ask the question, can I take a bigger image to make it favicon image easily? Yes, you can. There are some free apps that usually do that, but again, it won't be making sense. Usually a favicon is a small image. It's a small image. Let's say if your company is called maybe Facebook, then a favicon might just be an F, right? The same way you saw Google, it's just a G that is maybe designed in a better way. So you don't need to get a bigger image. Of course, you always design a smaller image, and then there are certain sizes of favicons. But again, if you design an image with just a few things, like just a G, even if it might be bigger, it will adjust accordingly, and the later should be able, everyone should be able to see that very later or that design within your favicon, right? So you can make it bigger, it's okay, but make sure you don't crowd it or you don't give it too much content. It is usually just a letter. You can try and check for many company websites. You'll see that favicons are usually are usually having few items within their designs or just one letter. So now for padding, if I was asking who can tell me the difference between padding and margin. I'll just ask this question to Samela. I check Samela.
Check.
Yes, what is the difference between padding and margin? Margin, I mean.
I think padding is inside. Okay, I'm going to put it in this context. Padding is inside the box, and margin is outside the box.
Yes, perfect. Well defined. So as she said, padding is inside the box. So if I put there 20 pixels, then it means our box is going to enlarge. Then we are now going to see our borders without actually putting there a height. So now you can see it was enlarged, but this enlargement is coming within inside. So now if we do a margin, like this, and we put there 30 pixels, this is what is going to happen. The space was applied outside. Did you see that? Let me put there a bigger size so that you can see it. Can you see? A space was now applied outside. So imagine it's outside the box and padding it's inside the box. As I said again, every content on your web page is actually displayed in a box. It is just that most of the times the boxes, they are not seen. But if you put there styles like this, background, padding, and some margin, and some border, you'll see now that your content is now wrapped in a box. So if your content is like this, it will be wrapped in this box, right? The box will be having a padding and a border and some margin outside and as well as an outline. If you put there an outline, you can obviously see that as well. But outlines, you don't need to use outlines here then, right? So outlines are the same as borders. Now, let's say if we have an outline of, before I even use the shorthand, let me first show you. If you write in outline, you see outline with this outline color and outline style, right? Therefore, it means we can use the shorthand and we can do maybe 10 pixels solid, and now let's have it as green. So you can see now the outline. So the outline is outside the border. Can you see that? So please do not confuse an outline with a border. I've seen most of the people confusing this. An outline is outside the border. So now you can see now we were able to obtain our box. We were able to see everything that is usually surrounding our elements by just making sure we show them. We show the outline, we show the border, and we kind of show the background and having inside the padding and outside the margin. So bear in your mind that everything you have on your browser is displayed as a box. That is why we can put there a border radius, which will apply some curved edges because it is a box. It's a rectangle, a square. Therefore, you can curve the edges, right? So that is why all those things can be used. I hope everyone understands this very well. So now, let us move on now with our with our, I hope everyone understands these shorthands, right? This is the width, the border width, and this is the outline width, and this is the border style, this is the outline style, and this is the border color, and this is the outline color, right? I hope everyone understands this very well, right? All right, so now let us move on with the positions.
I don't understand like the difference between outline and the border.
So an outline usually comes after a border. So that is the only difference. So it's a surrounding of the border. It surrounds the border.
Okay.
So if you're going to say, let's say if you're going to, let me show you where the outline would be used, by the way. Let us see an example. Let us see it in action, right? So let's say I have an input. This is just an input. Let me remove this. I'll just zoom this so that you can easily see it. So can you see input? Can you see the blue thing you're seeing here? The blue, if I focus in, the blue thing you're seeing, it's not a border, it's an outline. So let me show you how we can now remove this. If I just come and do outline none, it means if I focus now, you see, I'm not now seeing any outline. You see that thing was being caused by the outline. But again, if you still want to have it there, you can say my outline is going to be having 1 pixel and then solid and maybe red like this. So now it will appear like that. You just saw it is appearing even though we have a border there, right? Which means we can also give it the same, we can give it maybe, I want to give it yes, I want to show this outline when I focus. So now I'll say on focus, this is when the outline will be visible. So if I focus in here, you can see it is visible. Can you see that?
Yes.
It will be now visible. So, and now usually we use, in Tailwind, for those who have used Tailwind, we usually use what we call rings. So rings are outlines actually. So rings are outlined. And the same as borders, by the way, I forgot to tell you this. The same as borders, we have what we call an outline offset. We have what we call an outline offset. So an outline offset is the space between, let me now have my outline there. So let me say 2 pixels solid red. Let me remove the focus. Let us make sure that we can see it right now. So if I put there an outline offset and maybe say 20 pixel, can you see this is too big? Let me say 2 pixel. Can you see what it does? It's the space between the border and the outline. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So another a question. So can you see that this outline is not actually circular the same way the borders are?
Yes. The border radius for the outline is not matching.
So how should we implement that one? I need some answer that. Remember, you guys, I told you to go through all of this. Can we make an outline circular? I need somebody. If we don't get any volunteer, then I'll just go ahead and ask. I will choose randomly. These are some of the things you should have covered, guys. Can we make it circular? The same way, the border, we can change it. The border, you've already seen that one. You can say border radius like this. And we can say 40 pixel. You can see. Do you see? I've actually given you a hint. I've actually given you a hint. So now, this is what usually happens. So we don't have any outline, like the same way we do border radius, we don't have an outline radius. So the only way we can make this circular, it is if we give a border radius to our input or to any other element. So if you give it a border radius, the outline will move in the same curve. Do we say curvature? In the same curved nature of your border. But again, you can see our border is not well styled. Therefore, that is why whenever you put the border radius, you've always got again to put some styles related to your border, maybe like gray, like this, so that it looks uniformly. You saw when we had not put this here, it was kind of looking weird. You see there is a black up to here and there is a gray up to here. Can you see that? So these are the default nature of inputs. So if you want it to have a uniform color, then you need to give 1 to it. So now you can now say, let me remove this outline. You can now say that if I focus in my input, I'll give it a ring. I'll give it a ring of 2 pixels, now light gray. Usually see those who have used Bootstrap or Tailwind already know this. So if I focus, you can see now that thing coming up. Let me actually maybe bring this also here because it's related to the outline, and I'll do the offset very small. I'll make a smaller offset. Can you see that? This is how usually Bootstrap, this is how you're able to see the ring thing outside. You will see it on different websites. Let me show you maybe one. Like on login pages, let's say this one, let's take this one. If I focus here, can you see that ring coming up? That is the outline, right? So in most of the inputs, you usually do that to help you show the user that you're kind of focusing somewhere, right? So even though most of the times you won't make it very big, and maybe we can do one like this. Can you see that? And now your input cannot start from exactly the corners. You just need to give it some padding. So now we only need to give it a padding of a horizontal padding, right? Therefore, we need to say the top padding will still be 0 and the left and right should be maybe 20 pixels. Can you see that? Now you'll be able to start from wherever you want, but 20 pixels should be big. You can maybe make it 5 pixels. Therefore, starting from here will be better, right? And you can as well also decrease the font size. Oh, no, the font size. What is the style for the font size? So it is the property I mean. It is font size, and now you can give it maybe a font size of 10 pixels. This will decrease, right? I hope you can see that. So now another thing we can also do with the borders, you can as well make sure that the border are also changed if you focus or hover. Let's say if we hover, let's say our border can be, I'll just grab this. I'll just say it can be this red if I hover. So hovering is different from focus. Focus is when you click inside, but hover is when you just move your mouse on top of it. Can you see that? So focusing is like this when you want to write in something, but hovering is like this, right? All right, so I hope now for the borders and outlines you understand, right? So now let us move on with the positioning. I'll just go ahead with the div, or maybe go ahead with the main content. And inside the main content, I can have in some divs, like 4 divs, right? And here I can write maybe top left, and here I can write in top right, and here I can write in bottom left. I hope you can see what I'm actually aiming to. So right now, because we don't have any CSS, you can see how things are looking like, right? It's not as we want. So, but we just want to make sure that these things should appear in a box. We have our main here, and we give it a width of 100%, and we give it, we can even, instead of saying 100%, we can say 100 view width. I'm trying to use different units so that you can understand, and 100 VH. So now we can give it a background color of light blue, and we can give the color of our content, which is this top left, top right, and so on. We can give it a color of red so that it's easily visible. And you see that? And we have some default margins and padding. Last time we said how we can remove this. How can we remove these defaults? I need somebody to tell me. We use CSS. How can we remove the defaults? I'm going to choose again. Yes, David, how can we remove the default margins and paddings within our web page? You can obviously see them. These margins, we are not the ones who actually put them there.
Yeah.
So how can we remove them?
Body,
Mhm.
margin 0 and padding 0.
Margin 0 and padding 0. So you can see they will be removed, but there is also another way. There is also another way whereby we can use this one. And I'm going to pick somebody else to tell me the difference, because these two are different. Let me pick somebody else to tell me the difference. And let me pick somebody who haven't yet spoken in this. Mike Check Baptiste. What is the difference between this and that? Of course, when I comment this, you can see nothing changes. When I also comment this and use the other one, nothing changes. So what is the difference? My check Baptiste, can you hear me? So let me go ahead. So the difference is only lies on these tags. So this is a body tag, which means we are only applying this to the body, to the whole body, right? But this one will be applied to all our elements. Remember, there are some elements that won't be used in our body, right? So this is too general and this is too specific on the body, right? So that is the only difference, but both of them should work for you perfectly. All right, for me, I usually like to go ahead with this one. So now, let us now try to make sure that these things are aligned. As you can see, top left, this one should stay here. The top right should go here in this corner. The bottom left should come down in the corner, in the left corner, and the bottom right should come in the right corner at the bottom. So how should we style this? How should we style this? I need your guidance, guys. How are we going to style this?
So I think we can use like we can give them the classes or something else to so that we can use them. Like we can give them the
But I don't want to give them a class. You can still use them without using a class.
okay,
Remember, you can still use the
main first First
Exactly.
child.
So let's try it and see. If I just do div and then do first child, and then first child doesn't take in any parameter, and then maybe do a color of orange, I should see this one turning into orange. And
Yeah.
if I now do, if I duplicate this, I duplicate this once, and do, we also have last child, and do a color of tomato, I should be able to see this one having a color of tomato. Tomato is like red. Let me just change it to pink so that you can obviously see. This one will be turned to pink. We have, when you use first child, we usually have first child and last child. There is no second child. But if we want to tackle also the second child, by definition, we can use the nth, this one, the nth. If you start typing like this, nth, you will see this nth child. You can put in now 1, you can put in 2, and so on, right? You can put in 2, you can put in 3, you can put in 4. And now we can give them different colors, red, white, and now like this. You can see now they have different colors. So now we are targeting them without using what? Without using
Yes.
any selector like a class selector or an ID selector. I hope this one is well understood, right?
Yeah.
And we can as well make sure that we specify. What if we have another div outside here and we don't want to spoil our styling because we want to make them specific for this? We can as well do this. Main like this, then main like this, then main like this, then main like this. Here we are specifying, nothing will change. We are specifying the divs inside the main, right?
Yeah.
Now, but again, sometimes we usually see something like this. Let's say we have an H1. Let's say we have a div here, right here. We have an H1. We have and this is my first H1. And we have here in the div inside another H1, like this is my second H1. Both of them are the same. They will be displayed the same way, no problem. But what if I want to only target this one? I want to make it, I want to give it maybe a color of a green color. How should I target this? Somebody please. They are both H1. If we just do H1,
And you
give it
can
a
say
color of green, both of them are going to turn green. I only want this one only to turn green. What should I?
in
I don't, and I don't want to use, how should I say? I don't want to use nth child to make it more complicated.
I think you can say main H1.
Main H1, like this. See for yourself. Mhm.
Uh, can
I
you
know
try
some of
to
you already read
use
about this.
another color like blue so that you can?
You're almost there. You're almost there. Please look at that very well. Look at that very well. You're only missing just one thing. Let me say, your colleagues can as well help you. Because these are the cases you mostly meet when you're styling, and these are the cases you mostly meet in interviews. Okay, let me
So
show you the thing you're missing. You're only missing this thing like this. Look,
get it.
So I'm very sure you've seen people using this. You've seen people using these things. So what is the difference between this and that? I need you guys to understand this. These questions will come in interviews when you go. People mostly take this as the same thing. But what this one means? This one means that you're targeting an H1 which is in main, yes, but again, you're targeting a direct H1. A direct H1, it means it's a direct H1 to this main. Can you see that this H1 is not direct? It is not direct because it is nested in another element. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So the direct one is this one.
Yeah.
So if you do this and put there this greater sign, it will target the direct one. And if you just omit it, it will target all the H1s that are in main,
Yeah.
despite of if they are nested or if they are not nested. Right?
Yeah, question.
Yes, please.
Um, let's say we have another H1 right below. This is my first H1.
Right here.
Yeah.
It will also turn green.
So what if you want to target the first one?
Answer the question. This is another H1. You should answer the question. Let me show you.
I think there you'll use
Let me first remove
nth
this.
child.
So you can see it also turned green. That's a proof that it is because it is a direct child. So you will now specify first. Is it what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
First
I
child.
was
You can see
yeah.
now it will target your first child, right?
Yeah.
Because you're targeting this first child. The first child is this one.
Yeah.
And as well, you can use the nth what? This one, and put there one. It is still the same thing. And now if you want to target the second one, you can do this. You can see it turn green. The reason why this one is turning red, it's because we have a general one up here. Here, I mean, here. You know, CSS is cascading. Until there is another one overriding this, it will still use this one. But if we remove it like this, it will go ahead with the default one. The default one is usually black, you know, right? Is everyone answered, or do we still have some questions? Do we still have some
Another question. So to me that whenever we are using like those any child or first child, it is not like an array. It starts from one, not zero.
Yeah, it starts from one, actually. That's a good question. Please, it always starts from one. It's different from arrays in JavaScript. Normally in JavaScript or other languages, indexing usually starts from zero. But for these ones, it starts from one. It's first child, as you understand. All right, so now let's continue with what we want to achieve. Let us move on with what we want to achieve. Let me remove this. So we want now to achieve, this was just to show you guys. So now we want to style our things. So I was asking how should we begin, and you guys said you are going to give them different classes. I was like, we can use something else without using classes. So now, what else should we move on? Remember, we are studying about positions.
Yeah.
So now what should we move on with?
Okay, I think so. I have learned that if something is positioned as as like if we say absolute, if we say something, if we say absolute, the element will be positioning according to
And
the
where should we
nearest.
first have the absolute thing? Should we have it on the child or the parent? Guys, remember we should when we are positioning things, you're positioning it to what? You should always ask a question. If you're
Yeah.
positioning something, you are positioning it to what? You're positioning it to its parent, right?
Yeah.
So right now, in this case, the parent is main, right? And the children are the divs. So now, if we give these ones a position, then
Sorry.
the position can take in these values: absolute, fixed, relative, static, sticky. We've so far used, last time we used fixed when we are fixing the navbar. And today we are
Yeah.
going to look at absolute and relative. And for static and sticky, sticky works the same way as fixed, but you can go ahead and use them interchangeably and see how it works. So for the child, you need to you need to position it absolute, but it is absolute to what? It should be absolute to its parent. Then its parent should always take a position of relative. Please, this is something that most of the developers do forget. Usually position relative is there by default, but we should always put it there for some browsers to make sure that everything works as expectedly, because we want to relatively style these children to its parent, to their parent, right? So now, when you put their absolute, look at what will happen. Can you see what will happen? It is as if the container or the parent is there and now the child is positioned on top. So by default, it will be positioned on a default position, which is this one you can see. Let us actually make sure that we put there everything. You will see how now it will be. So can you see that everything is now on top of each other? It is as if we have something behind and the children are on top. By default, it will be positioned on a left 0 and a top 0. That is the default positioning. Therefore, we need to change it. How should we change it? We should change it with top. There is top, left, bottom, right, and bottom. You understand? So if we do top 0, let us start on the first one. For the first one, let us leave it as it is. For the first one, as I said, the default should work. This one, we need to position it this way, and this is the default one, as you can see. But for the others, you need to style them. And please, guys, I'm actually teaching you this so that you understand. You don't need to put here a top 0 and a left 0 like this. You don't need to do this because by default, that is how it is meant to be, right? But you can do that on other things. You can have maybe the second one, this second one, to come here. We want it to come here, right? This is what we call a right 0 and a top 0. The top will be 0 and the right will be 0. And you can see it, it is there. This is the top right. Can you see that? And now we need to have another one here. The other one is now this third one. So I'll just copy this. And what should we have now? Should we have a top 0? We will have a bottom 0 and now a left 0. Can you see it here? Can you see it, guys? And now we're remaining with this one. We need to position it here in the right corner. Now here we'll have a right 0 and then the bottom will be 0. Sorry, the bottom will be 0. You can now see that we managed to move all our elements in that directions. Can you see that? So guys, you can freely create something. Let me show you where this one can be used. Let me show you. I don't know if I remember this website. Let me show you. Is it called gifting? Oh my God, is it giving? I want to show you where. Oh, I'm actually using this one. Let me go to this one. Let me go to this browser. I'll be able to see it. Givingly, something like that. Yes. Let me show you where it was. The things were used. Can you see this? Can you see this thing? This was positioned this was position, this was position, using the absolute things, right? Even though they have in some animation and so on, but you can create something like this. Imagine of a screenshot like this, right? Imagine of this screenshot. Let me actually take it and open it. Imagine if you want to create a screenshot that is like this. Can you see this? If you want to create a page that looks like this, you want to have in like in the center some words and around some pictures. You will need to use absolute, positioning absolute. And then it is up to you. It is up to you to calibrate or to modify the top, right, bottom, left, and so on, right? To have such a picture. You guys can try that one. You can try that one. This is one of the best websites I actually know. You can try some of its pages using HTML and CSS. I gave it to you in the chat. So try it using HTML and CSS, but please note that it doesn't mean this is using HTML and CSS. They might be using some other languages. And you can obviously see that it might even be HTML and CSS. So, or some other frameworks. So let's see. It is actually using a JS framework called Swiper, and they are actually using HTML and CSS. Can see. Yeah. So therefore, you can actually try to copy some of the page sections and try to use some of the things we are learning. You can see how we were able to now move around these, to move around these things in the positions we wanted, right? So I'm
I
giving
think,
you a challenge.
excuse me, I think we are not seeing the bottoms ones.
Oh, you guys are not
I
seeing.
don't know if we need to change colors so that we can.
Oh, they are not visible. Okay, let me change the colors. Instead of being white, let me change it to purple. And let me also change,
It was a zoom. It was a zoom issue.
I think it was a zoom issue. So
Yeah.
if I do this, you should be able to see it clearly, right? You can see the top, you can see the bottom, you can see the bottom right, and you can see the top right. And you can even have it in the center actually, right? You can have it in the center, and I'm giving you that challenge. Or if one of you guys is thinking of a way we can do that, how can we have something in the center using absolute? How can we have that?
I think you can use like
Let us first put here. Anyway, it doesn't matter wherever we put it. Even these ones, if you exchange them, it doesn't
position.
matter. It will still work. But let us not move them because we are using fast and something like that. So let us say center, right? Right now, it will appear like this, and we want to center it fully. So let us say this is main, and this is the fifth one. So let us give it a color of this one. Right? Let's see. Yes, let us remove this one. How do we center it?
Like top 50% and
The top will have a 50%. Why a
and
50%? Please explain why 50%. But let us first finish. And the left will be of 50%. And these are actually things, guys, that will never change, by the way. If you want to center something, using absolute and relative. These are going to always be the same styles, right? So if we just do top and left 50-50, you can see how it looks, right? Is this one well-centered? Should we say, let me actually enlarge my, do we have it well-centered? Oh, this thing is bothering me. Can you confirm that this is well-centered?
Yes, it looks centered, but the logic behind top and left, it's not clear.
The logic behind top and left. So the logic behind top and left is the way it is. The top is the distance from here up to top, you understand? Left is the distance from here up to the left, right? And right is the distance from here up to there. And bottom is the distance from the bottom up to that content. You see? So I'm using top 50% to have a 50% of the height. 50% of the height, it will be centered. And left to have a 50% of the left. When a 50% on the left, it means it will obtain that. But again, you need to be very careful. This is not well-centered. On some computers, you'll be confused. You'll be very confused. It is just that my computer is displaying it this way, but on some other computers, you'll be confused. That is why you should always add this thing, a transform property. So transform property, you can learn more of these things. We can actually have also another session related to transform, transition, and also some other things that might be related to how you can maybe turn something to rotate and so on using transform, translate, and transition. But that is something also that would be beneficial for you guys if you read about it. So transform will transform your element. It can move it from one place to another by using it with other properties like translate. So the translate is a function that takes in a horizontal and also a vertical one. It takes in X and Y. X, which is the x-axis, and Y, which is the y-axis. Therefore, the first one will be the x-axis. You need to give it a 50%, which is negative. That is to say, you're kind of removing even the simple precision that was taken by some I would call it by some width and height of this content by using this. You make sure that you transform it with a translate of 50% on both axes. 50%. The same sizing that you put here should be the same sizing that should be here. Right now, you'll be sure that this is well centered, right? And you'll be sure that in case you do any responsiveness, it will continue being centered, right? But otherwise, if you leave this out, this might cause you some problems because you won't be encountering also the shifts. I don't know if you understand the shifts. So if we are, let me give this one a background. Let me give this one an idea of center like this. Oh, let me just, I'm using an ID because I want to show you that you can use IDs, but what I want to do, I can as well do it up there. So let me give it the background color of this one. Can you see this? So this one has a height and a width. You see? So there are some shifts that goes in when we are doing the absolute things. And those shifts for the children element, we need to make sure that they are also halved. And the halving them, this will actually take away the smaller precisions or the smaller mistakes that were there. Yes, to some people, it will look like it's centered and they won't even actually know. But for better practices, always please remember to put this one there. This one will help you to remove the halves of the widths for the children, right? These are small errors, but if you're in an interview and you do this only, without putting this one there, they will actually tell you that you didn't do it very well, or you won't be using best practices. And also you can do this in your practices and try to use translate and add in some values like 200 and so on, and try to see how things will change, right? And try to see how things are changing, right? So try to play around with these things and see how things can change. That is how CSS works. Sometimes we need to play around with some properties and values to understand things and be able to accurately see how they work, right? Okay, so do we have any other questions before we can move on? We've exceeded our 1 hour. If we don't have any other questions, I'll give you an assignment that you should also focus on, but as well, I'll send it in the group. So please make sure you go through also some responsive features. So for responsiveness, it means this is a way we can have everything. Right now we have responsiveness because of the absolute and so on. But let's say if we had in an image, like this, and we gave it, let me bring in an image here. We'll bring in sort of an image. Okay, let me bring in this one. Okay, so if we have this image and we use it like this, you see how it looks. Let's give it a width. IMG, let's give it a width of maybe 300 pixels and the height of auto. Let us give it a width of 800. You see? Now, if we minimize this, can you see our image is being cut off and it's introducing now a scroll, a horizontal scroll. And this is a very big mistake. Please, in your portfolios, make sure you don't have a horizontal scroll. We should only have vertical scrolling. Horizontal scrolling is a mistake until you're doing it willingly, unless if that is how you want your things to be. But I've never seen a website which has horizontal scroll which are not meaningful, right? So this horizontal scroll, you can see it is giving a white thing. We're not even actually seeing our image, which means our image is not responsive. Therefore, we will need to make sure that our image is responsive. So you can always make sure that you have responsiveness by making sure that you're introducing some responsiveness properties. There are so many properties that help us to do responsiveness. And some of you already know those properties, right? So it is all written still in CSS. But for CSS, you usually have styles that are very general, and you also have some styles that are very unique or that are related to your responsiveness. The first responsiveness should start from here, as I mentioned. It should start from the view. Did I delete them? I deleted them. We had a meta for the viewport and so on, right? We had some meta. Let me see if we can see it here. I think it's this one. Yes, the VP. Yes, this one will help you to obtain a viewport of your web page, or it will help you to make sure that your web page at least looks fine on a computer. It is not actually getting out of the edges and so on. Therefore, you should have this one. Some browsers, it will work out of the box. You don't need it. But when we are coding, we are actually considering all the browsers, older browsers, new browsers, right? So you should make sure you consider that. And for other responsiveness, this is when you're now going to start using some of other properties that will help you style your content clearly. When I mention of properties, these are special properties related to responsiveness, which you should make sure that they are in your media queries. So you will need to look at what we call media queries. These help us to style our content on all devices. So this is how it is used. This is the syntax. Let me give you the syntax, how it would look like. So usually you start with a NAT and you'll get some suggestions. When you click on one, you get a NAT with screen. And when you have this screen, you can actually even omit the screen thing. But when you have this screen, it means you're targeting screens, right? But these ones won't be enough. You also need to add sizes because screens are so many. There is a mobile screen, there is a computer screen, there is a tablet screen, and so on. Therefore, you will need to add some also widths. So you can have a max width or a mean width. So you can have all of that. It depends on what you're styling, but usually we will always use maximum width. So let's say if we reach a maximum width of 500 pixels, I will explain what this one means. I need my width. I only have to put in here only what I need to change. So when we reach a maximum width of 500, I need to have this width as 200. Let us test this one and see. So if I decrease this one, did you see that? So it means if it went on a width of 200 pixels, I had reached a width of this, a maximum width of 500 pixels. Therefore, everything that is under that maximum width, it will obey this rule. It will no longer obey this one. This is very important. Let me repeat it. So usually when you're doing responsiveness, you put your CSS that is related to certain special screens in what we call media queries. So media queries, these are just properties for CSS that help us to style for different devices or for different screens. So the simplest syntax is just a media at media, and then you can either put one thing here. We can use this one only, or we can also use this also. But for best practices, always specify screens, which means it will be targeting all the device screens in general. And now you can specify the width. As I said, you can also have a minimum width. But in most of the cases, we are styling or we are making responsiveness for smaller devices because on our computers, we can see them, we can see things clearly. Therefore, that is why we need to use a maximum width, saying that if we go below the maximum width, then this should happen. So how do you know the width has reached? So if you want to see the width of your screen, you can always do inspect. Right click in your screen and do inspect. And here you can come and click on this thing here. This thing will toggle the device toolbar. It will toggle this one, right? So, and now you can see this. Can you see the width here? They are changing. You can as well do this. You can do iPhone. You can use so many devices, but for me, I usually like responsiveness. Responsiveness is too general. So right now you can see we haven't. Let us see if we reach close to 500, what will happen? You can see we have now reached to 600. Observe clearly if we go below, we are on 501. Look, can you see that? When we reach on 500, it had to resize to this size. We can even make it 300 maybe pixels like this. If we are still on 2, it is like that. If we go on 500, it will now obey this. That is how responsiveness works. But again, we don't only use responsiveness by using media queries. We can as well achieve responsiveness with just some simple CSS. With simple CSS like maximum width on images. Like, let me give you an example on images, how we can achieve that without using media queries. So you can see, you have to make sure, first of all, you give your element or your image some maximum width, right? So you can say, maybe you have, let's say, maybe you want your maximum width. Maximum width is the highest width your thing can reach, right? Now, if you have a maximum width, let me come out of this. If you have a maximum width of 800, it means that this is, we have some mistakes. Let me actually comment this like this. So if you have a maximum width on your image of 800 pixel, it means that this is going to be the maximum width it can reach. It won't go beyond this. If we go on responsiveness, you can see our width. Let me do this. Our width will always stay this one. It won't change. It won't be the same as we can use maybe 100 pixel. I mean 100%. If we use 100%, you can see it is enlarging and decreasing in a way. Can you see this? Because it is getting 100% of whatever width provided to it. So which means for images, you can use widths which are in percentages and heights that are auto to obtain some responsiveness, right? And you should make sure that you're giving it a maximum width so that the browser understands that this is the maximum width, but it can change accordingly to the width, right? So please try to, I'll give you more resources related to responsiveness. For some topics, I guys need you to go through them so that you can understand them very well. When you actually get to go into something and read it by yourself, you understand it more than if somebody just goes there like the way I'm teaching you. So you already have the basics. The rest you can read. So please read about responsiveness. I've given you the syntax, how it usually works. This is how it works. Oh, what is happening? So this is how, let me remove these comments. Let me put it here. Yes. So this is how it usually works. So you only need to understand this. You need to make sure that you specify your breaks. Breaks are, if it reaches at this size, how should it now turn? Those are what we call breaks. And then within those breaks inside, this is where you're going to specify your styles. You can have another one. You can have another one and say, if it reaches here, if it reaches on 800, let me comment this one. Let me specify this one was 900 pixel and give it the width. You can say if it reaches on 700, it should have a width of 500. If it reaches on 500, it should have a width of 300. And you can check this. Check the breaks. This is 700, it should be this. Above, it should still be this, right? Where you're above, it is still this one, 900. But if we come close to 700, see what will happen. Did you see? It had to decrease, right? If we come to 500, it will decrease more. Did you see that? So you can introduce in so many breaks as you want. But again, you need to be professional and make sure you have best practices within your codes. So I'm telling you right now, you should be capable of building a portfolio, any web page using HTML and CSS on your own, right? So please, tomorrow, as you well know, we are not going to have session. It's Tuesday. We are going to have another session on Wednesday. please make sure you read more about HTML and CSS. Please. I don't want you guys to go within JavaScript when you don't even understand things that are easy, like HTML and CSS. And please, guys, try to rate yourselves. Try to see when we had not yet went through the sessions, when you had not yet read what you knew, like, is there any change? Like, has something, like, at least skills-wise increased? So if you see that nothing increased, then you should blame yourself. It means